roses are red, violets are blue. What could Cristress have for you? Why, another makeup, of course. What else could it be? Many eyes of black for you to see. Start with gluing down my eyebrows so that removal of the prosthetic later will be much easier. Using Telesis 8F adhesive and thinner, start to glue down the pieces. First, using a large brush to get it down, and then move to a smaller brush for the edges. These prosthetics are from Woochie. Once the edges are down, I did use Cine Illustrator Zero Color Powder under my eyes so that my eyelashes won't stick while I apply the final piece. For the forehead, start from the center and move out from there. As I applied it, I did powder above my eyes so my lids wouldn't get stuck. Stipple some thickened Prosthetic around the edges to help blend them. And added powder around the eyes. Then sealed the piece with Prosthetic so it will be able to take makeup better and not absorb it. Powdered it all down with Cine Illustrator Zero Color Powder. Apply Ben Nye Cake Makeup and Cine Light Tan with a sponge. Next, taking Cine Illustrator Grunge Palette using the color Prairie Dust, stipple with an orange stipple sponge. Switch to a brush for tighter areas. Did a quick spatter over everything. Switched over to Cine Illustrator Sand out of that same palette, using that same orange stipple sponge. Took the Cine Illustrator Pastel Yellow out of the American Horror palette and used this color on the high points of the face and the prosthetic. Also bring up the collarbones a bit. Then spattered Cine Illustrator Green Toner. This will cancel out some of the warmer tones in the exposed skin so I can get more of a sickly colored base. Followed by Cine Illustrator Possessed. Spatter it all over for texture. Back to the American Horror palette with Darth Moss. Start airbrushing the deep areas and making figure eights all over to get some creature textures. With a detail brush, use the same color to deepen some of the sculpture. Using Asylum, airbrush veins everywhere. Don't worry about making them super opaque or even, bouncing around and creating lighter and thinner ones for variety. Then moved on to Possess to really deepen some of the shadow areas. In the larger areas, I like to create splotches and blend them out to give it more fun texture, as opposed to just one big island of flat color. Lightly sponge some of the green toner over the high points. The mixture is thick since I wanted to keep the texture that the sponge leaves. Now spatter over everything to help make the veins and blotch textures look more like they're under the skin. Next, took the Cine Illustrator Duncan Jarman's wash palette using Redrum to make the eyes look more fleshy and sensitive. The neat thing about the washes palette is that it's a more translucent version of the classic Illustrator colors, so you can get a thinner color application without having to thin it out as much with the activator, which is perfect for around the eyes. Bouncing around and just building it up until it looks more inflamed. Also applied it around the mouth and some other areas to tie it all in. For a deeper tone, took that same washes palette, this time using the Rose Adjuster, and using this sparsely all around. Took the American Horror palette using Rice Pepper, aka Rice Paper, and lightly rake it over the areas to help pop the sculpture better. Even raked over the collarbones and the high points of the neck. Did switch out brushes to help brighten up the chest and neck areas further. And brought it up to the face anywhere I felt needed more rice paper color. Used a torn makeup sponge and added some textures, this time applying everywhere. The mixture of rice paper is pretty thick to get the texture. Don't want to cover up everything we just did. Kat Von D Beauty Lash Liner on the upper and lower waterline. Got that trusty American Horror palette, this time using the color Capillary and a super fine detail brush, create tiny little veins. Also called capillaries, hence my color choice. going through and building them all over, clustering them around the eyes and mouth. Filled in the eyeballs with Black Skin Illustrator. Use Coven from the American Horror palette to add that little fleshy pink tissue in the corner of the eyes. Use some more of the translucent Rose Adjuster from the Washes palette to better pop those eyes. Then go in the Scleras. Took Skin Illustrator Love Shine and applied this all over with a sponge. This will give everything a more natural sheen, especially on those black eyes. I did eventually spray this all over, wet my hair with oil to go with the character. Lastly, I used MAC Brilliance Gloss on the eyes to get them really wet looking, and putting it under my own eyes to make them look like they're weeping. And there you go. Thank you so much for sticking around. I have more tutorials lined up for next week, so be sure to subscribe so you won't miss out on them. And see you next time.